Not every person who identifies as transgender is the same. And until we are willing to say that clearly and honestly, we cannot have a real conversation about what is actually happening and impacting our various communities. Welcome back, family. I'm Deborah, and this is Family Still Matters. On this channel, we talk about family, faith, and real issues impacting our homes and our communities with honesty, with care, and with facts, because family still matters. 39% of transgender people report serious psychological distress. That's nearly 8 times higher than the general U.S. population. But most people think it's simply because of bullying and discrimination. Here's what they're not telling you. Testosterone directly affects the amygdala, the part of your brain that controls threat response and emotional regulation. When you give high doses of synthetic hormones to people with pre-existing mood disorders with zero long-term studies on the effects, you have to ask, who authorized this experiment? Some of you may already have strong feelings about this topic before I say another word, and that's okay. But I want to ask you to do one thing. Hold those feelings and thoughts for just a little while and let the facts come first. What I'm about to share is important to walk away from. What I'm about to share is too important to walk away from halfway through. The mental health crisis in the transgender community is real. It is serious, and the data behind it is not being presented honestly. By the end of this video, you will have the statistics, the medical facts, and the clinical research you need to have an informed conversation and a clear understanding of something that is being deliberately left out of this discussion entirely. We know the numbers. 39% of transgender individuals report serious psychological distress compared to 5% of the general population. That gap demands an honest answer. Most of the conversation blames social rejection exclusively, family, discrimination, lack of resources. Those factors are real, but the data also shows that transgender individuals raised in fully affirming households still experience significantly elevated rates of depression and anxiety. So rejection alone does not explain it. Underlying conditions, depression, anxiety, OCD, bipolar disorders, and histories of trauma appear consistently alongside gender dysphoria and were present before any rejection occurred. When we only discuss external causes, we bypass the internal clinical picture entirely, and that means people are not getting the help they actually need. Acknowledging all the causes is not cruelty. It is the only path to honest care. Testosterone has documented measurable effects on the brain, on emotional regulation, threat response, and impulse control. That is established neuroscience, and it is almost entirely absent from the public conversation about transgender health. Testosterone influences the amygdala, the dopamine reward pathways, and the brain's impulse control circuits. It increases sensitivity to perceived threats. It amplifies pre-existing personality traits and reduces impulse regulation. Bodybuilders have a term for this, and it's called roid rage, and it is a well-documented consequence of high-dose testosterone use. Now consider that many individuals beginning hormone therapy already carry pre-existing mood disorders. They are not starting from a stable neurological baseline, and there are virtually no long-term studies on the effects of cross-sex hormones in this population. We are conducting this experiment in real time on real people and no complete clinical picture to guide it. That is not healthcare, that is a gamble. And the people taking the gamble are not the ones living with the consequences. Parents are being told in doctors' offices, affirm your child or risk losing them to suicide. That framing deserves to be held up against the actual evidence. The most comprehensive long-term study on this question found that individuals who undergo gender affirmation treatment were significantly more likely, not less likely, to die by suicide than the general population. Updated research from Sweden and the UK has raised the same concerns. Several European countries have now rolled back affirmation protocols for minors because the evidence did not support the claimed outcomes. Pressuring parents with the threat of suicide to accelerate irreversible medical decisions is not informed care. It is emotional coercion, and parents deserve to know the data does not support it. Demanding better research and more honest answers is not abandoning your child. It is exactly what a responsible parent should do. Not every person presenting as transgender is experiencing gender dysphoria. This is a clinical recognized condition called autogenophilia, a pattern in biological males of sexual arousal linked to presenting as a woman. It is documented in clinical literature, and it is categorically different from gender dysphoria. Yet our public policy, our legal systems, and our medical protocol treat them as identical. The consequences are real. Biological males with violent and sexual offense histories have been transferred into women's prisons after identifying as transgender in California, New Jersey, and in Canada. 2 female inmates in New Jersey became pregnant after a biological male was housed in their facility. Violent statistics connected to transgender identity individuals are rising. The Rhode Island shooting, the British Columbia school shooting, and others. When we combine unmonitored hormone use, pre-existing mood disorders, and a policy environment that refuses to make clinical distinctions, you get outcomes that are entirely predictable. This is not an attack on people who are genuinely struggling. This is an acknowledgement that bad policy has real victims, and they are most often women and children. When the data is laid out clearly, the disproportionate distress rates, the neurological effects of hormone therapy, the failure of the affirmation narrative, and then the harm caused by ignoring autogenophilia, the most loving response is not silence, it is truth, spoken carefully and acted on honestly. And I want to speak directly to parents before we close. If anyone is pressuring you to approve hormone treatments or gender-altering procedures for your child or teenager, hear this. Your child's brain is not finished developing. The prefrontal cortex responsible for decision-making, long-term consequences, and identity formation, does not fully develop until the mid-20s. That is settled neuroscience. Puberty blockers affect bone density and brain development. That's serious. Cross-sex hormones cause permanent physiological changes. Surgical procedures are irreversible, and the long-term studies to support their safety in young people do not exist. Saying no is not failure. Asking for more time and more independent medical opinions is not cruelty. It is protection. The pressure being placed on families right now is not coming from settled science. It's coming from ideology, and your child deserves better. Now, many of you may ask, why am I discussing this on this channel? Because I do not believe in it. What I do believe in is being informed. And I know everyone that may listen to my channel may not follow the Christian and the biblical principles, and they may be dealing with things that most of us are not. But I do want to bring forth information and knowledge that a lot of the violence that is occurring is because these individuals are being injected with drugs that are altering their mental capacity. So I'm addressing this, even though I do not believe in transgenderism and a lot of things that the LGBT community does. But I do believe that we do need to be informed. And there may be someone listening to me that may not have Christian values that may be considering doing gender alteration or gender affirmation for their children. And I want to caution you to not do that. Let your child grow up and make that decision themselves. And that is my position. That is why I covered this, not because this is my belief and not because I embrace this mindset, but I do care about everyone and making sure that they're making the right decisions that are best for their children. If this video gave you something solid to stand on, like it, share it, and leave a comment. Pass it to a parent, a grandparent, or anyone navigating these questions right now. If this conversation is worth your time, subscribe.